Hey guys, it's Simon once again, and it's time for my final video for the China Marathon. So, over the previous few weeks, I presented a number of LEGO models representing some of the most important vehicles, ships and planes of the Chinese armed forces. And this is my final one, and this time it's the Liaoning aircraft carrier, a ship that was initially built in the old Soviet Union and was then abandoned in Ukraine, and it was finally completed in China as the first Chinese aircraft carrier. During the 80s, two very different navies controlled the seas. The US Navy, with a large fleet of nuclear super aircraft carriers, and the much smaller, but still quite deadly, Soviet Navy. The Soviets lacked aircraft carriers for quite a while. Admiral Kuznetsov, who commanded the Soviet Navy during the Second World War, was a huge supporter of the aircraft carrier concept, but Khrushchev, and mostly Brezhnev, hated the idea of an aircraft carrier because they were so expensive to produce and run, and they were very, very large and easy targets, as it was demonstrated during the Battle of Midway. But the advent of the Polaris missiles changed everything. Suddenly, the Soviet Navy needed long-range ships equipped with large quantities of anti-submarine helicopters to detect and destroy the American nuclear submarines before they could launch those missiles. First, they built the Moskva helicopter carriers, then the famous Kiev aircraft carriage, which operated VTOL fighters and a large complement of helicopters. But still, it wasn't enough. They needed more, bigger ships. So instead, they started to build the Kuznetsov aircraft carrier, capable of handling large jet fighters like the Su-33 and MiG-29. These ships lacked a steam catapult to launch those planes, so instead they had a skyjump ramp, which was installed on the front of the ship to help launch the planes. This was a very simple and inexpensive solution, but it severely limits the range and weapons load that the planes can carry. The Soviets tried to build a much larger nuclear aircraft carrier, the Ulyanovsk, equipped with steam catapults, but the Cold War ended before it was completed. Okay, so let's go back to the Kuznetsov. The carrier was completed in Ukraine when the Soviet Union split up, and it was transferred at the last moment to the Russian Northern Fleet, quite in a hurry, before it was just controlled by the Ukrainians. Today, the ship, although operational, suffers from a number of problems related to its engines and some other things. But there was another carrier being built by the Ukrainians at that time. Varyag was only 68% completed and was left to rot away on Crimea. For years, the rusted empty hull of the ship was left abandoned without a solution. But then something changed. During the 80s, the Chinese bought a number of old aircraft carriers like the Kiev and its twin brother, the Minsk. Today, those ships were transformed into museums, casinos, and even an hotel. They also dismantled the Australian aircraft carrier Melbourne, which means that the Chinese had lots of experience with the aircraft carriers at that time, at least with abandoned ships. So, when the group of former Chinese Navy officials approached the Ukrainian authorities to buy the hull of the Varyag and to turn it into another casino hotel, very few actually suspected their real intentions. Then, after a very arduous voyage, Varyag finally arrived in China. So, work could finally resume on building the famous and very expensive new hotel, floating hotel. But that didn't happen. The Chinese then finally admitted that after a colossal investments on reforming the hull, they finally had a fully operational training aircraft carrier. Liaoning is in fact a training aircraft carrier. But even so, with this ship, the Chinese joined the small club of nations that can afford an aircraft carrier. Another slightly modified design was recently built in China, and there are plans to build at least 2 more ships, one of them nuclear with electromagnetic catapults, which we shall see on the future what they are gonna build. And now it's time to see the model in closer detail. It has a length of about 1 meter and 30 centimeters, so it's reasonably long. It can be divided in 2 parts and can be split around this area here. As you can see, the ship has plenty of planes, helicopters, and some weapons that I'm gonna show you guys in a closer detail in a moment. Starting from the front, we have the sky jump from where the fighters take off. This is the middle section. It has the anti-aircraft short-range missile launchers. This is the place that the planes take off from the front. There's a claw that grabs the planes from the landing gear, and when the plane start the engines at full power, those claws free the plane, and then the plane just takes off like this. So this thing can be folded inside because there's another spot that the plane can take off from here. On the other side, there's the main lift that takes the planes from the hangar or the fly deck to the other place. So we can just take it up like this. We take one of the planes with wings folded like this, and then it goes all the way down into the hangar and can just go inside and be stored. There's another one, identical, here on the rear. Like this. The plane has a large hangar starting from here to around here, something like this. I'm gonna show you guys in a moment. It's also important to know that since the ship doesn't have any anti-ship missiles, which were installed here on the Kuznetsov class aircraft carrier, this place is empty. So I don't know if the hangar continues to displace here on the Chinese ship, but I left it empty, and if I receive a confirmation that it's extended to this place, I'll just change it. So let's see, there's the control tower, and we'll see a little more about this in a moment. On the rear, there's the resting cables for the planes to land. So if we just fold this, the plane just comes like this, grabs one of these hooks, one of these cables with a hook that it has on the tail, and then the plane just lands. It also has a guidance system to guide the plane to the proper angle to land. There's also some extra anti-aircraft equipment here and anti-submarine rocket launchers here on the rear. And now it's time to see the main hangar. Okay, to access the hangar, we just remove this part here, like this. We need to separate the resting cables, and this one can also be removed, and there's another one here that can also be removed, as well as the frontal one that I already showed. In here there's lots of room to put all the planes and helicopters, and they can just go like this normally to the lift and then all the way up to the main to the runway. And there's also connection between here and the other lift. There's also a small detail here. It has a screw here that if we just turn it, it turns the radar. I can put an engine here so everyone can see that the model is motorized. It's always better to have a model with something moving to grab all the attention. Okay, so this is my final model for the China Marathon. It took more than a month to make it, but it's finally here. And so thank you so much for watching all my previous videos and all your support. And we shall see what I'm gonna make next year for another display. This one I will probably exhibit in the LEGO convention next year. I don't know which one. So I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to visit my Flickr page for more pictures of this model. And also subscribe my YouTube channel for many more videos which I will make in the future. So thank you again.